using negative numbers to make sense of context. So we're going to make sense of negative numbers when they talk about money. So I can explain and use negative numbers in situations involving money. I can interpret and use negative numbers in different contexts. So make sure you have today's date, your I cans, and your page number, and you are ready to go. All right, let's take a look at some Monday. All right, so take a look at this chart. Yeah, I hope you noticed a few things. One, we've got doing chores, it's 30, babysit my cousin, 45, buy my lunch is negative 1080, get my allowance, 15, buy a shirt, negative 1869, pet my dog, 0. What's going on with those? What are any of the ones that are positive numbers? Yeah, those are situations where you're making money. What about these negative ones? Yeah, those are times when you're paying things out. So oftentimes you would have just subtracted those, but in a chart like this, a lot of times you'll enter it as a negative number. Let's go to the concession stand, the concession stand, the concession stand. Nope, got it. All right, so manager of the concession stand keeps records of all the supplies she buys and all the items she sells. The table below shows some of her records for Tuesday. So, which items did she sell? Yeah, I hope you realize it was the French fries and the apples and the hot dogs and the donuts. How do I know this? Well, one, the quantity that she has is now negative. So that means that she sold that many, got rid of, lost, whatever. And that she made $37.70, $48.75, $14, and $132. Good grief, what kind of fries are those? I mean, I know they sold 88, but geez. Anyway. So we can talk about that negative 58 here. We just talked about it a second ago. As being how many that they sold. So they sold 58 donuts that day and made $37.70. What about this negative $10.35? What's going on there? Yeah, so if you look, the quantity has gone up. It's gone up by 3,000, but there's a negative dollar amount. So this means that this, most likely, is something that they bought that particular week. And then on here it says, which item did she spend the most money? Well, there are only two negatives, right? We've got the pizza and the straws. So which one did she spend more on? Yeah, the pizza. Straws are pretty cheap. $3,000 for $10.35. That doesn't seem too far out of place. Here we got 13 pizza for $116.87 that she spent. So that appears to mean that she bought pizza. Drinks for sale. Let's take a look at some drinks for sale. All right, so we got a vending machine in office, buys bottled beverages. Machine keeps track of all the changes in the number of bottles from sales and a machine from machine refills and maintenance. This record shows the changes every 5 minutes over a period of 1 hour. So, what might a positive number mean on here? And what about the negatives? Well, if it's keeping track of the refills and the sales, every sale would be bottles coming out, right? So each of those negatives are how many bottles were sold. The positives would be restocking. And also, if you think about it, doesn't it make sense that there would be 12 bottles put in and there would be 24 bottles put in all at one time? Because that would be stocking it up after it had sold some. What about the 0? What do you think these zeros mean? We got one here, here, and here. Yeah, nothing's happening, right? It's not selling any. Nobody's putting more in it. So there's 10 minutes, 2 5-minute groups, and another one here where nothing's getting sold. Which numbers, positive or negative, result in fewer bottles in the machine? Well, if we're talking about fewer bottles, we're going to be talking about the negative numbers, right? Because that means that they got sold. We have the positive numbers when we add them in. What time was the greatest change in the number of bottles? Yeah, the greatest change at one time is from 850 to 854. Why? Because that was when 24 were added in. How did that affect the rest of the bottles in there? Well, it increased the number of bottles, right? And then from then until 9 o'clock, nothing happened. It didn't lose any of those bottles that got put in. Which time period from 805 to 809 or 825 to 829 was there a greater change? So let's look at the 805 and the 825. Which one of those is a greater change? They're actually the same change, right? Here we're adding 12 bottles. Here we're actually selling 12 bottles. Both of those are equally the same distance from 0. So the change is the same. Even though one of them is a negative and one of them is a positive, the change is actually the same because these are our opposite numbers. Machine must be emptied to service. If there are 40 bottles when the machine is serviced, what number will go in the second column on the table? Wouldn't it be negative 40? Because if we've got to clear everything out to be able to serve it, then you're going to remove the 40 bottles. Okay. All right, let's get to wrapping up. What did the positive and the negative numbers mean in this lesson? So positive numbers, we're talking about putting in or adding to. Negative numbers, on the other hand, we're talking about removing. So like when we talked about things, the bottles being sold in the previous part, or we talked about buying things, those were negative numbers because that was money that was getting paid out. The positive numbers were the ones that were coming in. So we could use positive and negative numbers to represent gaining and losing money. What other situations can you think about where you gain or lose an amount that you could use negative numbers to talk about? Would positive and negative changes, what would positive and negative mean in those changes? Well, I think you could talk about, where we did yesterday, or not yesterday necessarily, but on the previous lesson, talking about, with temperature, like the temperature is, like a wind chill will make the air feel 5 degrees colder, so negative 5 degrees compared to what it is. Things like weight, you could talk about positive and negative, positive gaining weight, negatives losing weight. Speed, subscribers on YouTube channels, position like in football, for those of you that know sports, like if a quarterback is sacked for a loss, they'll record that as by however many negative yards it was from the line of scrimmage. There's lots of different things where you can talk about those positives and those negatives. I positively think, though, that we have covered everything we need to in this particular area. So make sure that you get your problem set or your practice problems worked through and get ready for the cool down to be done later.